Hey, it's Mistress Carrie, reporting for duty from MCHQ for episode 55 of the Mistress Carrie podcast. Okay, I have been waiting for this episode of the podcast for a really long time. I met Taylor Momsen from the Pretty Reckless years ago when she came up and played acoustic on my show. And we had a great conversation. Then I went and saw the band live and was blown away. Over the last few years, Taylor Momsen has been pretty candid about everything that she's gone through. And most recently, she has poured all of that into their latest album, Death by Rock and Roll. I knew at some point Taylor and I were going to get caught up and be able to talk. And I have been waiting for her to come on the podcast. As always, she was genuine and open, forthcoming, and really candid, not only about everything that she's been through, but about what her vision is for the future. She is as passionate about rock and roll as anyone I have ever met. And I am so excited for you to hear this interview. So allow me to introduce you to Taylor Momsen from the Pretty Reckless, the hardest woman to get a hold of in rock and roll right now because you are so busy. Taylor Momsen from the Pretty Reckless. Thank you for coming and hanging out with me today.
Thanks for having me.
I feel like every time I turn around, I'm reading something about you. You have just been working it.
We haven't really stopped. It's very strange to put out music and not tour on it, but I keep joking. I'm like, I never knew I could be so busy and not leave my house.
You and me both. Welcome to MCHQ. I had to build my own studio because of the lockdown when WAF went off the air last year. So I leave the house very infrequently, and it's very strange.
It's very bizarre. It's weird times we're living in, but the studio looks awesome, by the way.
Thank you. It's the cleanest studio I've ever worked in.
Well, there you go. You know, the benefits of doing it yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a weird time right now, but I mean, it's good. You know, things are starting to open up and, you know, the world's starting to get back on track, I think. So it's, you know, I'm hopeful.
I haven't seen you in a bit. You came in and played acoustic on my radio show at WAF years ago. And you and I talked a lot about the difficulties in being taken seriously, not only as a woman in rock and roll. And this was years ago we had this conversation, but also coming out of a different side of the entertainment business. Do you feel like this album has finally put the last nail in that coffin where you're more known now as a rock star than you were for anything else you've done?
I don't know if I consider myself a rock star.
You are, Taylor.
But I think that the time has kind of, I mean, it still comes up like my past acting career and stuff, and especially around Christmas with the Grinch. But, you know, it's more so that people like are discovering that I was in the Grinch and stuff because they know the band. It's not the other way around. So I think that it's certainly the tides have kind of shifted the other direction. So that's a good place to be in.
Talk to me about the decision to release the record in the middle of a pandemic, because I've been talking to a lot of bands and there's all of the different schools of thought. Hold on to it, wait until you can tour on it, release a song here or there. You guys just dove in and said, fuck it, we're releasing the record.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it was a long conversation. I mean, we finished the record before COVID started. And we luckily shot the album cover back in March, right before lockdown started. So we thankfully got the album artwork done just in the nick of time. And I came back up to New England to start rehearsing because we had amazing touring planned. It was like, you know, Foo Fighters and Guns N' Roses and, you know, the Pearl Jam, like all the festivals. It was looking really great.
It was going to be so awesome. The world was going to be so awesome.
No, it was some of the best touring of our career lined up. And then, you know, everything shut down, obviously. And so we waited for a while and just waiting and we finally made the decision to put out the first single, you know, the title track, Death by Rock and Roll, because I just like, you know, people need music right now. People need something to, you know, motivate them and, you know, feel alive and, you know, rock and roll does that for me. So like, why would I hold on to that? So we started with one song and kind of saw how, you know, testing the waters, kind of seeing what that was going to do. And it did immensely well. It did great. And it turns out I was right. People did need that kind of catharsis. And so we kind of held on to the record a little longer. And I finally got to the point where, you know, we have a song on the album called 25. I wrote that when I was 24, turning 25, and recorded it right after my birthday. And I was now, I'm now 27. And I was like, we can't, when am I put this out when I'm 30? Like we gotta get it out there and, let the music kind of sit and settle with people. And, I think the longer people have time to sit with the music, the more they're going to understand it anyway. So, that was kind of the thought process. So it's like, let's just, close our eyes and jump and, hopefully people will respond to it.
You talk about the artwork for the record. You took a lot of pictures on a motorcycle, Taylor. Please tell me that you got your motorcycle license and you're riding that damn thing.
I don't have my motorcycle license. My sister actually just bought a bike. I don't have a license. I can't drive. So I lived in New York my whole life.
You still don't have a driver's license?
I still don't have a driver's license. No. So that's something I'm working on now because it's getting a little ridiculous at this point. So that's, but once, bikes, my dad rides Harleys, my sister's now riding, like I've been around bikes my whole life. And, that photo shoot was an homage to Kato, even down to the last detail of, it's almost kind of overdone and almost 80s rock, which is not my thing at all. Like I'm not a big 80s rock fan. There's some good stuff, but it's not really my thing. But it was Kato loved that stuff, so it was an homage to him. And he passed on a motorcycle, so that's kind of where the inspiration for that came from.
As somebody that does ride and that has survived a motorcycle accident, knowing the loss that you've suffered by losing him, it's a really scary thing, and it's affected me getting back on my bike. I still ride, but it definitely makes riding a totally different thing.
Yeah, well, it's, you're suddenly aware of what could happen. I mean, that was I don't want to get all heavy here, but it still is a devastating loss that came at a complete, it's complete utter shock. And, I'm still not over it. This whole record is very much an homage and, it's dedicated to him. And, we did our best to kind of keep his memory alive.
I'm bringing up the motorcycle riding thing because you spend a lot of time in New England, which I love and was kind of surprised by when you came into the studio and did my show years ago. And this isn't exactly the best place to learn how to drive, Taylor.
No, it's not. But I mean, it's better than New York, though.
That's true. That's true.
So you got to, I got a place in New York and I got a place here. So if you take your pick, it's, at least there's some, back roads here.
What is it about New England that gives you that peace of mind where you want to spend so much time there? What is it about this region of the country? Because when you grow up here, it's home, but you didn't grow up here and yet you've made a home here.
Well, I love New England for a lot of reasons, but first of all, I love the juxtaposition. I love New York. Like New York's always going to be my home, but I love the juxtaposition because sometimes you need to just get out of the city and you need to kind of be isolated. And, especially during COVID and stuff, especially writing and things, like I need solace and I need, privacy and to be alone. And I love that you can kind of hide in New England and but at the same time you can go out and and it's beautiful. And I love England too. Like I've thought about moving to England many times and but before I get my visa or whatever, start with New England. And just I've spent so much time up here over the past 10 years because the band is from up here. So I started when we rehearse up here, so I started staying in hotels and stuff or crashing on their couches, and I was just spending so much time up here and I loved it that I was like, well, I might as well get a place at this point. Like I'm up here half the time anyway. So that's kind of how it happened. And I love it. It's beautiful. I love the wildlife. I love the nature. I love the kind of horror aspect of it. Like I actually really enjoy the winters too. Summer's obviously beautiful, but
Stephen King's information.
Kind of my thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So I love that kind of isolated feeling, I guess.
I wanted to talk to you. One of the things I love about having this podcast that is different from being on the radio is that we can really get in depth about a lot of the process behind the art, which I never had time to do when you were on the radio only. And one of the things,
so it's so quick.
Yeah, and we got to get into commercials and there's 10,000 people around. And I'm such a huge fan of music and the people who create it because I literally played the clarinet in the marching band, and that is the extent of my musical ability. And I use
That's awesome.
And I use that term loosely because I really don't have any. And I'm really interested, and I've been asking a lot of different artists this, Can you take me through your actual writing process? Because you talk about how you needed to be quiet in New England. So does someone bring you a riff? Do you write music? Do you work on the lyrics first? Like, can you talk to me, maybe pick a song off of Death by Rock and Roll and kind of talk to me about the evolution and the process of it?
Yeah, well, I get asked this a lot, and it's kind of a hard question to answer because there is no process. And that's kind of what makes writing so torturous, but also so rewarding. There is no, I wish there was, there is no formula to how we do it. The only kind of consistent thing is Ben and I write the songs together. It has to start with an idea, and that idea has to be inspired. And that's really kind of the only consistent thing. Sometimes it starts with the riff, sometimes it starts with the lyrics, sometimes it starts with the melody, sometimes the whole thing comes at once, sometimes it's you sit with one little piece of it for a really long time, and that turns into something over the course of months or years, or it depends. So like everything is done so differently that there is no direct answer. I know the thing that you're always searching for is you're always searching for inspiration, and that's something that I'm always constantly seeking. And I say it's torturous because you don't know if, where inspiration is going to come from. And you don't know if it's going to come. And that can be a very, scary thing. Like, you finish one song and you go, oh, that's great. And then now you're left empty again and you're going, shit, I have to do that again. Like, okay, now what? And that's kind of been the consistent thing throughout our albums. This album, Death by Rock and Roll, I've been kind of saying, just kind of reflecting on it now that, we finished it a while ago, was different in the sense that, we went through so much loss and so much trauma, very quickly. And I sunk really far down into into a hole of depression and substance abuse and, everything that comes with loss and grief. And I didn't really know how to get out of it. And I didn't know if I wanted to. And I kind of just gave up on life, if I'm being honest. Like I kind of just went, I don't see the point in this anymore. Like everything I love is dead. What's the point? To make a very long story short, I finally got to the place where I needed music. Like music is the thing that I've always turned to that kind of, brings me hope and brings me back to life. And, I kind of shut myself off from music for a long time. And I finally got to a place where I was craving it. Like I need it like the same way I need food and water and oxygen. So I started kind of at the beginning just by, listening to the bands that I fell in love with when I was younger. And I kind of started examining my life and questioning and going, what made you fall in love with this? And so I started with the Beatles. I started with, the first band I fell in love with and listened to every, Beatles record and the anthology and watching, interviews and live recordings and, anything I could kind of get my hands on. And from that, it kind of, led down the rabbit hole of the bands and the story and the way I learned music, from Led Zeppelin to The Who to Pink Floyd to AC/DC to, finally getting around to being able to listen to Soundgarden again and have it bring me joy and not, sorrow. And that led to me picking up a guitar again and just playing songs for the pleasure of it. And in that, as soon as I started to do that, that kind of opened the floodgates of me starting to write. And the way I say it's different is because I didn't, like I said, you normally are searching for inspiration. In this case, as soon as I kind of let myself go there and stopped repressing everything I was feeling, the floodgates opened and these songs just kind of poured out of me. Like I didn't have to try to write this album. It kind of wrote itself. It was like the universe had smacked me in the face with a brick and was like, here, Taylor, you wanted something to write about. I gave it to you. So stop being an asshole and open up. So that's kind of how this album was written. It was kind of almost a stream of consciousness of just everything that I'd been holding inside.
It's amazing how much it comes out in these interviews that I've been doing, how much of it goes back to the Beatles. And if there's anybody listening to my podcast that hates the Beatles, you're just another example about how wrong a person that thinks that is, because I am a huge Beatles fan and that's where music and my love of it came from as well. And so hearing you say that, just thank you for being on my Beatles side.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know how you can't love the Beatles. Like, I have friends who don't love the Beatles, and I'm like, why am I friends with you? um, because they did, I mean, they did everything. Like they covered every genre. They covered it in such a short amount of time and so quickly. They're so prolific, and just, there's never going to be another group like them. It's mind blowing. Those records are phenomenal.
You talk about Soundgarden, and this is also something that's come up on the podcast a lot. And it's a realization that I had during the lockdown when I really started doing these long, in-depth interviews for the podcast. Chris Cornell, his music, I'm such a fan for myself, and he came in on my show many times and was just the most amazing guy, genuine, sweet, selfless, creative, any word you can use to describe him. And what I realized over the last 16 months is that, first of all, nobody can ever say that you weren't aware of any struggle, because he, like you, just took everything and put it in the music. It's all there in the lyrics. Everything that he went through, it's all there. And the realization that I came to, and I couldn't wait to ask you this question because I know what this record means to you and what you put into it. Chris Cornell, and any artist that writes about personal things, pours all of that into this art that you then release to the world as a tangible product to be consumed, which on one hand, you're giving us this gift of the feelings and of, being able to associate our own feelings with your music. But on the other hand, you're taking what you hold most dear and precious and what makes you raw and vulnerable, and you're giving it to the world as a commodity. And that is a really strange exchange. And I never really thought about it until, like I said, the last 16 months or so. And then on top of that, you have this cathartic experience of purging these feelings into something. And then you have to relive what inspired it every night on stage playing those songs. And that's got to be hard.
Yeah, I think you kind of touched on a lot of things. I'm trying to figure out where to start here. I think that, I make music for myself. I write songs for me because I need to. It's my identity. It's who I am. Like I wouldn't know what to do with myself if I didn't. And I think that's why when I shut music out of my life for a while there, I became very, very lost. And and when I found it again, I started to feel full again, I guess. And so it's a very bizarre thing making a record, because, as soon as you finish writing a song and you take a step back from it and it's a good song, I mean, you write a lot of bad songs in between. When you write something that's good, you then want to go make it. You want to go record it. And then once it's recorded and it's finished and it's good, you want to share it. It's kind of just the natural progression of things. You want people to hear it. But it is a strange thing to put, music out into the world, especially when it's so, personal, that you're kind of giving a piece of yourself away in a sense. And it can sometimes leave you with this very weird feeling, like, when you put out the record, it's very exciting, and all the positive sides of things, but it also leaves you kind of empty, because it's suddenly like you spent so much time slaving over this, these songs and this album and everything that, goes along with that. And as soon as you release it into the world, it doesn't belong to you anymore. I always say it's kind of like a child. I mean, I don't have kids, but I assume that that's kind of the same feeling of like sending a kid off to college or something and going like, well, I hope I raised you well, like, see you later. And so it's kind of like giving a piece of yourself away, because it's not yours anymore. It doesn't belong to me anymore. It belongs to the world and the listeners. And so that's kind of always a strange feeling, because you're left kind of empty and you have to figure out how to fill up that hole, because you just gave a whole piece of yourself away. And it's like, okay, well, who am I now? And so it comes with a lot of, self-reflection and discovery of yourself every time you do that. And I think with this album in particular, I didn't really think that playing the songs live is actually not. Sometimes, songs hit hard and you kind of, sometimes you can break down, or, it kind of depends on the day. But when you're touring, you're on stage and you're performing, and you're in a different mindset. You're not necessarily reliving the songs that deeply. I mean, you feel them, but you're not living that same life at that moment, So, you're entertaining, you're performing. It's a different mindset. But I didn't really think through the interview process of this album, of how reliving it and talking about the losses and the tragedy. And because there's no way to speak about this album without going there. I didn't really think how that was going to affect me. And I think after doing so many interviews consistently, 6 hours a day, every day, when the album came out for, months, it started to kind of wear on me, where it was like, I can't talk about this anymore, because it's starting to come back to me and break down, and I'm trying to move forward. And so I think that I didn't really think that part through all the way.
Well, I apologize for bringing it up, but
No. There's no way to talk about this record without speaking about those things. So it's, that was I made my bet. I got to lie in it, but I didn't really think that far ahead, I guess. So, it's something that you just, it's bizarre. It's when you pour yourself into something, and you said it and put it out as a commodity. I still never really view it as a commodity, but I guess you're right, it is. I still look at it like, I hope this connects with people, and I hope that it can, help them or invigorate them, or, whatever music does to you. I hope it does all those things for you, the same way, all the records that I listen to do that for me. So that's really that's what I try to focus on, I guess, is, hopefully this is helping people and making them feel something. And because, music is such a powerful language. It's such a universal language. It's something that everyone can speak and everyone can understand, even if you don't speak the language. And I think that's such a beautiful thing.
It is this strange thing to go through the process of grief and then have the world be completely submerged in grief simultaneously. I mean,
oh yeah,
the world has had to deal with things, and people not being able to commemorate loss and have funerals and visit people in the hospital. And one of the things that I give you so much respect for is being so willing to be open and honest about the struggles you had with depression, addiction, as you were processing these immense losses that you're talking about. Was there ever any hesitation about keeping some of that back and not talking about it? Or did that help you in your process?
I think it was probably a combination. I think in one way, speaking about it, it's talking about Cato and talking about Chris and everything. It became, I'm keeping Cato's memory alive by saying his name every day, and by acknowledging his, everything he brought to this world. So I think that that's in one way, very powerful and was very healing, but, certain days, certain question can strike you the wrong way. And, it's a fine line between, healing and I'm about to break down again. So I think that that's, I ride that fine line kind of consistently. And there's some things that I don't share with the public. I'm not telling the entire story, but I'm giving you enough information so that you can understand this album.
Can you talk to me about what your fans support and the support of the rock community, even though things have been so crazy the last year and a half? Can you talk about your relationship with your fans and what that relationship means to you?
Well, the fans are just incredible. I mean, we went away for, we left for a while. I mean, we haven't played a show since December of 2017. And so, when you leave the public eye or whatever for that long, you never know what to expect when you come back. And when we put out the first song, Death by Rock and Roll, they were right there, and, they didn't go anywhere. And to see that kind of loyalty and that kind of respect, or I don't know if respect's the right word, but that kind of loyalty and love for the music that we make is just such an amazing feeling. And we couldn't do this without them. We wouldn't be able to have the career we have if they didn't like it. So it's a very rewarding feeling to know that, they always have our backs, I guess, we can take time off and be people and be human and, go through grief and in our own time. And then when we come back, they're right there waiting. And that's so amazing and so supportive. And, to have that kind of support system that, it travels around, it's around the globe. It's not just in America, it's everywhere, is incredible and kind of mind blowing if you actually think about it.
There's so many people over the years. I mean, God, I remember people saying this in like 99, that rock is dead and all of that nonsense. And any true rocker knows that that's not the case at all. But one of the things that I have witnessed over the last 16 months as the world has been turned upside down is that the rock community seems more and more to be this example, this shining example of representation, inclusion, the land of misfit toys where everybody's weird and everybody belongs. Do you feel that way?
In rock and roll?
Yeah, just all of us as a community, that we're kind of like showing the rest of the world how to do it right.
Well, I think that's rock and roll is all. First of all, you have to remember, rock and roll has always been on the outskirts. Like rock and roll is not. It's not pop. Like pop has always been in the mainstream, and rock and roll has always been kind of underground. And it has its moments in the light, and it has it's almost cyclical if you look at it through time. Like the 50s is very pop and single bass, and the 60s came in, and 60s and 70s with kind of a rock and roll renaissance of all these bands and artists that really had something to say, and it kind of wiped out pop. And the 80s happened, and rock and roll kind of formulaically went into the kind of trying to be more, it's more about the image than the music. And it kind of went into more of a crafted kind of songwriting and, more pop, I guess, still electric guitars, but they're pop songs. And then the 90s came in and kind of wiped everything out again with the whole Seattle scene and everything. They came in and they had something so important to say, and that it was undeniable. And it took over. And then the 2000s came in and pop came in again. And we're kind of still living, I think, in the 2000s. So now, and I think that, we're just waiting for the next rock and roll renaissance. And I certainly hope to be a part of it. But rock can never die. That's the cool thing about it, is it's so organic, and it's about the music, and it's about a person having something to say that affects everyone. And I think that's what it's always supposed to be. And so, saying it's dead, it's like, no, it's just underground. You're just not looking hard enough yet. And that's, that's always been like that.
There's a certain part of rock and roll you want to be in the underbelly too. We kind of like to be in the dark corners.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, because rock and roll delves into subject matter that pop wouldn't dare do. It deals with the dark side of life. It deals with the positive side of life too, but it delves into subject matter that you don't hear in pop songs. It's not just all sunshine and rainbows. And sometimes that can be a little too much for people, So I think that's where rock and roll thrives. It thrives in the grit, and it thrives in the pain and the suffering and the everything that it means to be human.
One of the things that is a benefit for somebody like me that has been in the business for so long is, especially as a woman, that I've seen things really change. I mean, I remember in the early days of my career, if you played one female fronted rock band, it was like you met this quota and then you didn't need another one. Like I was the only female DJ on the air, and it was like, okay, we got one. We don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, the token girl.
Yeah, the token chick. Yeah, it's like, okay, we got one, And now I'm looking at the amazing, not just amount, but quality of the art, the amazing music, that rock music, true rock music that's coming out of women right now. And for me, it's like I've been waiting for this, right?
Yeah.
But you are part of this whole movement of it. It's like, God, I've been sitting around waiting for this fucking train, and it finally showed up. And thank God that not only that it showed up, but that it's good.
Yeah, it's a cool time to be alive. I mean, obviously the world went to hell and back, but having said that, if you think about it though, I'm talking about COVID now, but if you think about that, it's actually, 20 years from now, like we're living in a movement right now, and, the world is changing, and it's very cool to be a part of it. Like it's almost like the 60s. It's like I said, it's a renaissance happening, and it's sometimes hard to see when you're in it. But 20 years from now, like you're going to look back on that and go, yeah, I was a part of that. And it's going to be, the kids 20 years from now are going to be like, I wish I lived in 2020, because that was because I used to say I wish I lived in the 60s when, change was happening, and change is happening now. And I think it's a very cool time to be alive, and it's a very cool time to be making music and putting it out and writing about it. And this album in particular, like, it's kind of crazy, like looking back on it now and like looking at some of the lyrics. This whole record was written before COVID ever happened. And there's some lines on some lyrics on the songs that I'm like, it fits perfectly with what's happening right now. Like, or it's almost verbatim and you'd think I wrote it yesterday. It's very strange. It's like, does life imitate art, or does art imitate life? It's kind of, what came first, the chicken or the egg?
You had to make a really difficult decision, not only in actually releasing the album in the middle of a global pandemic, but bands, now are making that gambling decision of, do I tour, do I not tour? And you guys just made the decision of, we're just not touring this year. Do you regret making these decisions, or, is it because you've got big, huge plans for next year? I mean, how are you feeling about having to make that decision in such uncertainty in the business?
Well, it's something we struggled over making that decision. It wasn't an easy decision to make, because obviously we want to get back out on the road and we want to play these songs live, and, sitting on it longer, feels very strange. But, it kind of came down to, I don't really know what the world's still in the process of turning right now. Like, it's not 100% what's going to happen yet. And aside from that, I said it earlier, but we haven't played a show since December of 2017. So, and we just now are able to get back in the rehearsal space and like see each other. So I really wanted to take the time to really make this great and become a band again. Like, we haven't played together in so long that I really wanted to, build this from the ground up again. So when we actually come out, we're better than we were before. Like, we're a new band. It's the same band, but a new band, because this record really feels like a rebirth. And I wanted to, take the time to make the live show and the touring experience, for the fans and for us, really a rebirth for that as well. And so that's really what kind of came, how I made the decision of, I want to be in a rehearsal space for 6 months, 9 months, like really kind of organically building this up again. And we just started rehearsing, and it's a blast. It's so much fun. And so by the time we go out, we're on fire.
The longer you do this, I think, when anybody starts a rock band when they're young, they just want to go out and do their thing. And rock, unlike a lot of other music genres, especially pop, like you were talking about, there is a loyalty from the audience and a longevity of career that is possible.
Yeah.
And in order for that to be possible, you got to be able to pull it off. So are you cognizant of that now and doing things to protect your health, your voice, because you want to be able to do this for a really long time? Because every like older artist that I talk to is like, God, I wish I had taken better care of my back. I wish I stopped smoking 20 years ago. I wish I ate better. Like, are you really making sure that you're going to be able to maintain that high level? And what are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, health is the number one priority. I mean, this pandemic was kind of my worst nightmare. I'm kind of a hypochondriac. Like, before COVID was ever a thing, like I fly with a mask and gloves. Like, I don't like to shake people's hands. I do the fist bump or the elbow bump thing. Like, cause getting sick on tour is simply it's the worst, because even if you recover, you're never 100% again, just because you don't get enough sleep. You're going from country to country, state to state. And you're never 100% again until you stop that touring cycle and, rebuild again. And so I do everything in my power to not get sick. And so that's something that, I do at home as well. So, just you try to eat healthy, you try to, drink a lot of water, take vitamins, and, work out, and just try to, maintain your physical health as much as possible. And that's, something that I certainly don't take for granted, and I don't take lightly. So yeah, I think that's something that's certainly important, because, like you said, you want to be able to do this, forever. And I meant to mention, because, we're not touring to 2022, but having said that, 2022 is it's almost fully booked at this point. So it's looking like it's going to be really great.
You better be rested and hydrated, because you're getting to work.
Oh yeah, no, it's gonna be nuts. It's gonna be like, once we're off in 2022, it's gonna be 2022 to 2023. Like, so, once we start the cycle, it's touring. It's years. So that's because that's the thing with touring cycles. It's not like you just go out for a quick little run. Like, once you start, you're out. So I really want to take the time ahead of time to make sure that we're all prepared for that, and in a really great way, better than before.
Talk about longevity of career. For you, growing up a fan, to work on a song like Only Love Can Save Me Now with Matt Cameron and Kim Thayil. And the video, by the way, you looked cold all the time, being soaking wet, which was probably freaking hours. Can you just talk to me about the process of working with those guys, not only on a friendship level, but go back to just being a fan when you were a teenager and now you're recording with these guys?
Yeah, it was, incredible and completely surreal. And, if you had asked me 10 years ago, like, if I talked to my younger self and was like, you're going to be playing, Matt Cameron, Kim Thayil are going to be playing a song you wrote, I would have told myself, shut up. You're like, that's not going to happen. So it's very surreal and very, just amazing. First of all, obviously I'm such a fan. They're two of my favorite musicians of all time, but so, aside from that, like, I really got to know them, and they're such great people and they're such dear friends of mine at this point that it was such an organic collaboration that came about. It came from, I wrote this song and I was in a very very dark place at the time. And, I demoed it. And when I finished demoing it, Ben and I kind of turned to each other and we're like, this has kind of a Soundgarden-esque feel to it. And so I called Pat and I sent him the demo and I said, will you listen to this? And would you guys be interested in playing on this? Because if you don't, we're just going to sound like we're ripping you off. But I really loved the song. And, they thankfully said yes. And it was just such an incredible experience. We recorded it in Seattle. We flew to Seattle. We recorded it at London Bridge Studios, which is, where Soundgarden recorded Louder Than Love, and Pearl Jam made 10, and Alice in Chains made Dirt. And
just a little history in the walls, just a little.
Yeah, so much. And I'm a firm believer that places are kind of like people. They hold memories and energy and their walls. That's why I love studios so much, because you can feel the history as soon as you walk into the building. And so to be there, and to not only be there, but to be there with Matt and Kim, creating something new together after all this kind of tragedy and trauma and everything that we all went through separately and together, but separately, was just such a beautiful kind of full circle moment. At least for me, I don't want to speak for them, but for me, it was a beautiful thing. And then on a light note, it was like, to hear the song come to life, for the first time. Like, the first time Matt hits a snare and the first note Kim plays on the guitar, it's just like, I thought the speakers were going to fucking explode. Like, it was so fucking awesome. It was just like, and we all kind of looked at each other and just went, well, that works. I guess, should we do another one? Like, it was a very kind of organic, natural thing that just happened, and kind of one of those magic moments that, you're always hoping for, but you never know what to expect. And everything just worked. And, it's certainly one of my proudest accomplishments. So I owe everything to them. Like, I can't thank them enough.
Having these conversations and the time to kind of dig into the weeds of inspiration and where this music that we all love comes from, this question has kind of popped up. And when I started asking people this question, the answers I've loved so much that I've just vowed I'm going to ask everyone this question for the rest of my life. As a songwriter, can you tell me what song of any artist, genre, style, time, whatever, that you wish that you wrote yourself? And can you break it down and tell me why? From a songwriter's perspective.
Oh, geez. That's like an impossible question. I'd honestly have to think about that, because there's many songs. And I don't even know how to pick just one. First of all, just any Beatles song, just say that, just because they're so brilliant. Seasons by Chris Cornell's, like Hunger Strike. Seasons, like, I look at that and it's just kind of a masterpiece. Like, I'm just like, how the hell did he do that? It's so intricate and so complex and so musical and the lyrics are so poetic, but that's almost simple in a way where you can understand it, but that there's so many layers to it. Like I really love music that you can listen to over and over. And every time you listen to it, you can discover something new inside the song, and it kind of hits differently, and you hear something else. Like, I've listened to the Beatles records ad nauseum at this point, since I was an infant. And every time I listen to any song by them, I notice something new. It's like, oh, that tambourine's panned to this side. And oh, I didn't notice that it hits twice here and once there. And I'll listen to that, how they're doing that. That's so intricate. So I love music that has a lot of layers and is intricate. And so every time you hear it, you hear something new. And that's what I strive to create in my own music and our music is something that, you might not understand it the first time you hear it. And the more you listen to it, the more you're going to get inside of it, and it's going to, feed you. So I don't really know how to answer that, because there's a lot of songs that I wish I wrote, any Bob Dylan song is well. So it's like, there's too many to choose from, but that's kind of how I look at music, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And that's something that, myself too, growing up listening to the Beatles or any other music that you just love so much, is that idea that, it's like a movie you love. It's like, wait, I didn't notice that before, but I've watched this 100 times. It's like when it speaks to you, there's always something new, and you're listening to it as a different person. So a song 10 years ago isn't going to mean the same thing to you as it does now, because you've crammed 10 years of experiences in between the first time you heard it and the next.
Yeah, that's the other reason I never like to really explain what the songs are about, because, even listening to our records, from 10 years ago, like our first album, if I had defined those songs and told the story, because it's not that simple. That's not how songwriting works, at least for me. Like it's grand and it's wide. And even if it starts with a singular idea or a singular experience or something, when you're starting to write it 10 years from now, or 10 years from then, you're going to see it and view it differently. And it's going to mean something new to you. I mean, even with Death by Rock and Roll, like we finished the album, and now after COVID, I listen to the songs and they've transformed almost into something else. And, not all of them, some of them. And every time you listen to it in my own music, I hear something new in it. And I go, oh, this means something different to me now than it did when I made it. So I never like to define the meaning of songs, outright, because one, I think it's unfair to the listener. I think that you're taking away something from them, because I think that music should be listened to with, an open mind and open ears of, relating it to yourself. And if the artist tells you what the song's about directly, then that's all you're going to think about. Like a good example is Shine On You Crazy Diamond by Pink Floyd. I've listened to that so many times, and a couple of years ago saw a documentary, and Roger Waters told a story of what it was about and how it was about Syd Barrett, and he got very in depth about it. And now every time I hear the song, I think of that, and I don't let my mind kind of escape into the song the same way I used to. And so I never like to do that. I never like to take that away from the listeners, even though I kind of end up talking in circles in interviews because I just don't give a defined answer. But that's the thing about music, is you can't give a defined answer, because it's constantly changing, even though the song is already recorded and done.
I haven't been to a concert since the end of February last year, which is literally the longest stint since I started going to concerts as a young teenager. And I've been saying that when I go to my first one, I'm going to hug the guy that spills his beer down my back. I'm going to hug the guy that steps on my toes, the drunk girl that screams in my ear. Even the shitty stuff about shows I miss. What are some of the annoyances or whatever about touring that you're just like, God, I just can't wait for that? Like the smelly dressing rooms, or like whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, what can you
the
not
terrible
wait?
Toilets and showers.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the whole thing. I think we were pretty burned by the last run that we did, due to a lot of reasons, but we had to take a step back. And now I'm just dying to tour. Now I miss it so much. It's because touring's, it's kind of like a drug, and it's a drug that you can't get anywhere else. It's a high that you can't find anywhere else. It's the best drug. And so I'm definitely missing that, but I miss the sweat. Like, you don't sweat stage sweat. You don't sweat like that working out. You don't sweat like that. I mean, you sweat, but it's not the same. It's different. It's a different kind of sweat when you're performing. It comes from the heat, from the lights and the crammed audience and the smells and the invigoration that the audience gives you, and that kind of symbiotic relationship that you form with the fans and the audience. Like you can't get that anywhere else. And I miss that. And, I almost miss, not entirely, but I almost miss being super tired. I almost miss like being, almost hallucinating because I haven't slept in 4 days. I miss the whole experience. It's something that you can't find. You can't find that sitting at home playing, acoustic guitars or even electric guitars or doing, I've done a lot of cool collaborations during quarantine that, wouldn't have happened if we were out on the road. Like the things that, wouldn't have come to fruition. Like I did, I did Halfway There with Matt Cameron and The Keeper with Elaine Johannes. And we did a stripped down version of our song House on the Hill that I've been wanting to do for years. And I just never got around to it because I didn't have the time. And so I think that that's been really, kind of rewarding in quarantine, but as much fun as it is to play, acoustic guitars and put out little videos and things, I really miss electricity at this point. And electricity in like every form from, amps to the electricity that the live show gives you. So I'm looking forward to 2022 for sure.
It's one of those things where it's like, if you have a closet that you've been meaning to clean out and you didn't find time to do it during lockdown, you didn't clean it out because you're a lazy piece of shit, not because you didn't have the time.
Well,
because we've all had the time.
I have a closet that I would mean to clean out. I still haven't done it. So
I didn't mean to call you a lazy piece of shit. You've been busy.
Well, I have been kind of busy, but I'll get around to it one day.
Before I let you go, congratulations. You win this iHeart Rock Award, and you beat out little names like Ozzy, Shinedown, Five Finger Death Punch, AC/DC, small, insignificant rock names that no one's ever heard of.
No one's heard those names before. No, it's pretty incredible. I mean, when I saw that we were nominated and I looked at the list, I was just like, oh, okay, well, it's cool. We're nominated. We're not going to win. I just kind of wrote it off. And when I found out that we won, it was a very startling moment, I guess. It's very shocking. I was like, wait, what? Is this a joke? And very, very cool, very rewarding. And, I'm not huge on awards because I don't really know what they mean at the end of the day, but that's not how I define success. I don't define success by number ones and by awards and things like that, but it's still, when you win one, it feels pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, it feels better than losing one.
Yeah, right. I've lost plenty, so to win one, it's like, oh, this is different.
Yeah, this is nice.
This is kind of a cool feeling.
And to have some good news come out of like such a weird time in the world, like.
Absolutely. I mean, the response of this album has just been so incredible. Like, we had no idea what to expect, releasing music in this strange time we're living in, and to see it be so successful and to see the response of the listeners be so positive and see that it was really connecting to people it's the highest compliment you can get. And, and to have that kind of support and that loyalty from our fan base and not even just our fan base. Like I think a lot of new people have discovered us during this lockdown. And to see it kind of grow without touring is really kind of incredible. And I'm very grateful for that.
Well, I just want to tell you, I mean, everyone has dealt with grief in their life. And for me, it wasn't a person, but for me, it was like a best friend. To lose WAF, a legacy radio station that I grew up listening to and then worked at for 29 years. And to lose that, and then 2 weeks later, the lockdown start, that grieving process was really hard for me. And
I can imagine. It means your whole life is suddenly, different.
Yeah.
In the snap of a finger, it's believe me, I get it. Like we lost our studio as well. Like our studio closed down and we've recorded all our albums there. So it's like we lost my best friend, our producer, and our studio and an idol. It's all very quick, like one after the other. And it was just like, what is happening to the world right now? And then lockdown. And it's like, okay, well, I've been in my own lockdown of grief for the past 2 years. And now I'm just extending that for like for another year or year plus, I guess. Like it's very weird. It's a very weird time we're living in. And I can only imagine how hard that must have been to lose WAF. Like, it's what an important station.
And to be like, we were on the air at midnight, you know, like we were there when they pushed the button, and I attribute it to like pulling the plug on a loved one. Like you have to do it, but it sucks. And
oh yeah, it's awful.
Yeah. And you know, the reason why I bring it up is from my own perspective, it's like, you don't want to talk about it. You got to go through it all and process it in your own way. But at the same time, like what you were saying, like talking about it does kind of help. And knowing what you guys have gone through, knowing what you poured into this album, knowing that you're coming back at the other side, it sounds incredibly condescending, and please don't take it the wrong way. But knowing everything that you've dealt with, I'm really proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
For being able to take all of this and turn it into something. Yeah.
It almost killed me, but
and that's why I'm saying it, because you've been so honest about how low you got. And
yeah,
anybody,
it was not good.
And anybody that has, I mean, we all know that mental illness right now, depression, all of that, just because of the lockdown, just because of the isolation, the things that you're talking about are universal things that a lot of people can identify with. And the fact that you did the work and came out of it and can now talk about it as openly and freely, that's hard work, Taylor. You know, you're a fucking badass to have been able to do all of that shit. And sometimes it takes looking back at how far you've come to allow yourself to, like, not give yourself a pat on the back, but give yourself a fucking break that you weathered the storm, you know?
Yeah, certainly. And I think that's a really good message for, you know, everyone and anyone, because, you know, like you said, everyone's kind of going through it right now. And, you know, as things start to open up, I feel like everyone kind of, the anxiety level of like just the world is starting to, like, you know, it was already high and now it's kind of creeping up because people haven't, you know, I haven't spoken. I mean, I speak on Zoom and stuff, but like I haven't seen anyone, you know, for the very, very long time.
Yeah.
So even just like being back in the room with the band, it's like, we have to like relearn each other in a way. Like we, you know, we talk every day, but it's just being in person with someone. It's different. Like you have to remember how to do it. Like remember how to be human again. And it's a very strange thing. So, you know, I hope that, you know, everyone can be nice to yourself, but give yourself a break. Like this has been a very stressful time for everyone.
And now we can all start to get together and purge all of it. I don't know how you guys are going to be able to hold back 1 second when you finally get back on the stage and you're able to just do this all live. I think rock fans and rock bands are in for a whole new level of rock show, of live performance.
Definitely. Well, my joke has been throughout COVID. My joke has been, you know, it's kind of like tantric sex, like not being able to go to shows right now. Like, you know, you want it, but you can't have it. And so by the time live shows, you know, I know they're starting to come back, but for us, by the time we play again, it's going to explode, you know, it's going to be like the best orgasm you ever had.
Ozzy Osbourne said recently about the record he's working on that he feels like a pregnant hen. And I was like, only Ozzy could say something that's so weird.
And have it make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I am so grateful for the generosity of your time. I am such a huge fan of this record, and knowing what you poured into it and knowing what came out of it. It's such an exciting time in rock and roll, and I can't wait to see you guys play these songs live. And I just can't wait for life to move forward in this new way. I don't want to say get back to normal, because like for me, there is no normal because AAF's not coming back. So it's like we're trudging forward into this new reality. And for rock fans to be able to get together again, you know, I feel like we've been having club meetings on Zoom, and we finally get to go and, you know, have our secret handshake and like go into those temples that we call our concert halls and be able to experience all of this and blow off some fucking steam, because we could all use it.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I think it's going to be cathartic for everyone, you know, for the musicians playing and for everyone listening there. Like, I think it's just going to be an amazing I think I'm very hopeful for the future. We're moving in the right direction, and I think it's going to be really good.
It feels good to be optimistic, doesn't it?
Right?
It's so weird.
I know, right? I mean, I was trying to stay optimistic throughout the whole quarantine. That's my tantric sex joke came from. I was like, well, if you look at it like that, by the time it comes back, it's going to be bigger and better than ever. So, if you just be patient, and we've been patient, and now things are starting to open up again. And I think it's just going to keep getting better and better.
Well, thank you so much for your time, your honesty, and congratulations on everything. And I can't wait to see you in person. I will elbow bump you. I'll give you the knuckles, whatever it is, but I just can't wait to see you.
Well, I love you. We can do it. We can do a full proper hug.
All right. Full proper hug. I'm into it. I can't wait. So congratulations and thank you so much.
No, of course. Thank you so much. It was great to talk to you.
It was great to talk to you.
Hang in there. We'll hopefully see you soon.
Yeah. Oh, you're going to see me soon. Back on the radio, things are getting better. Everything is all good. So just bring on the shows. I just want the shows.
They're coming. They're coming.
I know. All right. We'll talk to you later. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.
Bye.